right? What is the syllabus mapping with respect to this news? The syllabus mapping with respect to is it can be taken from. Done, sir. Good evening and welcome to Daily News Simplified. In today's edition, dated 7/7/2024, we are going to discuss the following articles with respect to your civil services examination. With respect to the mains examination, we are going to discuss semiconductor industry in India. And with respect to the prelims examination, we are going to discuss these four articles with respect to your prelims examination. Now, what is the context of the first article? Let us begin to understand. So the context of the first article is that recently the Secretary of MIT has said that India has deep expertise to scale the chip industry and become a global player in the semiconductor industry, and has also emphasized on the need of ensuring that India produces more and more chip components. The end for which we are eyeing for is perhaps we need it is directly linked to generation of more and more jobs. It makes us self-reliant. And the third aspect is that till now we are importing most of the number of the semiconductor chips, right? With the help of setting up of more and more plants, we will be able to reduce the imports in this context, right? So what is the syllabus mapping with respect to this news? The syllabus mapping can be seen in the context of our GS paper 3, which includes industries and various industrial policies of the government of India. And in 2021, there have been questions. For instance, in 2021, there was a question directly mentioned on the food processing industry in India. And a very relatable question was asked in 2017. The question was, account for the failure of manufacturing sector in achieving the goal of labor intensive exports rather than capital intensive exports. Suggest measures for more labor intensive rather than capital intensive exports, right? So let us move on with the analysis, but before it, let us understand what is the meaning of semiconductor and what do you mean by semiconductor chip, right? So there are two kinds of elements, right? If we say that a particular element is a conductor of electricity, this means that current can easily pass through the element. However, if we say that this particular element or compound is a insulator of electricity, this means that current cannot pass through the particular thing. However, there are certain materials which have the property that electronic or electrons pass through them, but in a limited manner. And because of this limited passage of electrons through them, they are classified as semiconductor, and these have various properties. And the entire it would not be an exaggeration if I say that the entire industry 4.0, that is with respect to our mobiles, our computers, so on and forth, right? So all these advanced industries are based on the semiconductor industry. So that is the importance of semiconductor industry in the context of development of a nation. Now, what are certain innate features of this semiconductor based industry? Let us understand. First of all, it is a highly complex and high precision job, right? So semiconductor are used for manufacturing of semiconductor chips, right? So these chips, the work is done at a micro level, right? For example, these are called as motherboards, microprocessors, right? So this skill is the skill that is required is of very high precision, and at the same time very high level of skills are required for development of semiconductors, right? Now another significance of this particular industry is that its current valuation is 500 to 600 billion globally, and it is going to touch up to US dollar 1 trillion by 2030, right? And the another feature with respect to this particular industry is that it is highly concentrated in the hands of few elite countries which have the technology to develop those kind of chipsets. For example, the manufacturing of chipset industry is located in these three particular countries, that is Taiwan, South Korea and United States of America, and the supply chain is controlled by countries like United States, China, Taiwan, EU and Japan, right? So you can see that this in particular industry, although which is having very high returns, right, very huge market, but it is localized in certain particular countries. So this is the particular significance with respect to this industries. Now what are various challenges if we talk about globally in recent times? How India as a player has emerged, we'll have to learn, right? So the space for India began to emerge because of the two reasons. First one was that there is an ongoing US China conflict in this context, right? So there is a war going on between US and China with respect to global hegemony, and one of the aspect with respect to the global hegemony is that they are also going on there is also going on a kind of cold war between USA and China for technological hegemony, right? In this context, USA keeps on alleging that China is violating the intellectual property rights of USA, and USA has brought in Science Act to defend its intellectual property rights, and in turn China, it controls almost all of the raw materials which are required for the production of the end product. So once USA started sanctioning China, China responded by stopping the supplies of gallium, elements like gallium which are essential for the production of these chips. Furthermore, events like COVID-19 were enough to bring to the attention to the world that we also need kind of self-sufficiency in these kind of strategic sectors, because these chipsets are required for example, mobiles, computers, supercomputers, even very high-end healthcare products. Also, healthcare machines also require these kind of interventions. So these are the challenges faced, and this is how India realized that we need to ramp up the chipset production, and we need to be at least self-sufficient in this regard. Now, what is the specific importance of this sector in the context of India? When it comes to us, the market size alone in India is close to 65 billion US dollar, and this, when other foreign companies are coming up and eating of these profits, we need to learn that this is net outflow of foreign funds from India. So we are giving away US dollar 64 billion to the foreign companies, which can easily be saved or invested back in India. Then in the recent times, because of the interventions and various government initiatives by MIT, we have been successful in designing various chipsets, right? And at the same time, because of the ongoing conflict between China and Taiwan, Taiwan is reorienting its foreign policy, and it is called as Taiwan's southbound policy. And because Taiwan is also looking southwards, it is looking for natural partnership between with the countries of ASEAN and India to diversify its first chipset market and then chip based industries as well. So in this context, India appears to be a green faster when it comes to establishment and development of chipsets in India. Now, what is the importance of semiconductor chips for India? Obviously, the first one being economic growth, because this particular segment is directly linked to, like I said, Industrial Revolution 4.0, and almost all of the processing and manufacturing is going to turn towards automation. So, in this context, this chipset play a vital role. Then next element is with respect to our national security, right? For example, these chipsets are required in supercomputers which are employed at our nuclear power reactors, other power reactors, right? Power grids, transmission, even in defense technology, satellite technology, so on and forth. For this context, we also require a self-sufficiency and indigenization at the level of production of semiconductors. Then third aspect is with respect to geopolitical, that is reduced reliance on China. We need to reduce our reliance when it comes to China. Why? Because at the time of Galwan clashes, we saw that China was able to interrupt or disrupt our supply chains, right, with respect to some critical minerals and raw materials. So that is, in this context, we need to be wary of this fact that China might in future course of conflict come in conflict with India. So in this context, we need to reduce our dependence on the foreign providers. Then to improve our supply chain resilience also as well, we need to invest in the indigenous chipset production. And lastly, technological leadership of the world. India is as of now, we have already set up factories with respect to mobile phones, computers, so on and forth. But most of the chipsets over here are imported. For example, one of the world's largest Samsung factory, production factory, is located at Noida. Even high-end premium products like Apple have invested in Tamil Nadu, right? But what is actually happening over here is assemblage of those products. Raw material, chipsets, motherboards are manufactured mostly at their Taiwan-based facilities or South Korea-based facilities. They are brought in back here and they are assembled over here at the factories. So the next logical step would be the creation, the manufacturing of those chipsets, so that our import dependency on the chipsets reduces. So now moving on, let us see what have been the government initiatives in this context. In this context, government has brought in national policy on electronics, which has been revised year after year. The last policy was brought in 2019. Similarly, the government has brought in scheme and India Semiconductor Mission and product scheme, productivity linked scheme, right? Productivity linked incentive scheme. So in this context, this was the news that out of the 76,000 crores, this productivity linked initiative scheme had the component of 76,000 crores. And out of those 76,000, 70,000 crores had been paid already. So the leftover amount of only 6,000 crore was there, right? So government has also launched PLI scheme in this context. And when we look at the foreign collaboration, India and USA have joined ICET deal to further encourage and handhold the relationship between India and USA to improve the manufacturing of these semiconductors, right? Now moving on, let us see what can be the challenges and constraints with respect to this particular industry in India. The first one being the high cost of establishment, right? So fabs are highly capital intensive, and one manufacturing unit takes almost 5 to 6 US dollar 5 to 6 billion to set up one this kind of factory for manufacturing of semiconductor chips. Then there is a need of infrastructural requirement. Almost as of now, all these issues have at least been resolved by the government. For instance, a continuous supply of water and uninterrupted electricity has been resolved. But another challenge in this context is that while in the fabrication stage, it also requires certain types of gases at the time of fabrication, right? But India is not self-sufficient in production of those gases as well, and we import those particular gases when this production is carried forward, right? So that is with respect to, that is another challenge with respect to production of chipsets in India. Now another issue is with respect to long gestation period. Up to 5 years, it requires up to 5 years to set up an industry and reach its full production potential. And because why? The reason being very stringent IPR laws, right? We cannot just copy and paste one kind of chipset and produce another kind of chipset, because that particular chipset is patented by the company, right? For example, I cannot go away and copy paste the Intel, let us say 7th generation chipset, and say that yes, I have produced it. Intel will have an intellectual property right claim over that particular chipset. And if I have to create my if I have to go into this business, I have to do a lot of research, I have to do a lot of investment in R&D. Then only I will be able to manufacture that particular chipset and get it patented. So because it is regulated by very strong IPR laws, it takes almost 5 years to realize the full production potential. And then at the same time, because of the labor laws and labor issues in India, there is a lack of quality labor supply that also needs to be addressed. For example, in past we had 3 proposals to set up these kind of entities in India, but none of which could be materialized. Then another aspect is with respect to lack of skilled workforce, because India, the problem with India is that we have an ample amount of workforce with us, but the challenge herein lies that our workforce is not very well trained. So because of lack of training, there are very few experts in semiconductor engineering in India. And then at the same time, another issue is with respect to an ecosystem based approach. See, one chipset might look a very casual and very small end product, but the assembly line, supply chain, and the entire ecosystem, for instance availability of gases while the fabrication is undergoing, is required. And since we already discussed that India imports those gases because of lack of self sufficiency in its own production, right? So unless the raw material component are not taken care of, the problem will always lie in creating a strong ecosystem for the mass production. Moving on, now all these problems kept aside, what can be the way forward? The way forward can be ecosystem development. The first problem that we faced was with respect to that we were lacking a strong ecosystem. So what would be the natural solution? That we develop a strong ecosystem in this context, and we need to work for development of supply chain, design and manufacturing facilities. At the same time, we also face that India lacks specific engineers in this context, so we need to focus on skill training to the labor. Next is with respect to focus on research and development. So these aspects, because they are missing, why? Because we are not able to invest in high amounts with respect to research and development. So this particular issue is reflected in the labor force, and this needs to be addressed. Now another aspect that was the problem over here before the launch of PLI scheme, but this particular thing has been addressed, and industry is now being incentivized. How industry is incentivized? With the help of collaboration with academia, providing training and internship opportunities, investment in R&D, and providing a lease, right, incentive of 76,000 crore rupees for the development of the entire ecosystem. Next is with respect to the partnership. Just like we saw that India has signed an ICET partnership deal with USA, we also need to figure out and take advantage of the present conditions of the world and sign deals with, for example, Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan to further improve the ecosystem with respect to chipset manufacturing in India, and at the same time work for attracting the foreign companies so that they shift their particular industries to India, right? So this is all with respect to the first topic, that is chip manufacturing industry in India. Moving on to the second aspect of today's DNS, the first article that we are going to deal is with respect to Zoravar tank. What is the context of this news? This particular piece of weapon has been unveiled by a Defense Research and Development Organization, which has unveiled country's first indigenous light tank, Zoravar. This tank is going to be very helpful for India in mountain warfare. Now, I kept imagining and questioning that how come this tank is named in a very particular way, right? For example, India's armored core, our tanks are named like we have T-72, that is called as Arjun, and T-90, that is called as Bhishma. Both of these names have been derived from mythologies of Mahabharata, right? So how come this tank was named as Zoravar? So in the course of my research, I came to know that this tank is named after a general, that is General Zoravar Khan, not Zoravar Singh. He was general of Raja Gulab Singh of Jammu. And this particular general was expert in mountain warfare, and that is why, because this particular tank is being specialized for mountain warfare and it is a lightweight tank, that is why it is named after General Zoravar Singh. Now what are the key features of this particular tank? The first one being that it is indigenously developed, unlike other armored tanks of India. For example, T-90 is has been taken from Russia, right? So it has been jointly developed by DRDO and L&T, right? Then another most important aspect is its lightweight nature. For example, it is weighing only 25 tons. However, the weight of Arjun is close to 45 tons. It is almost 20 tons lighter, and that is how it becomes important, because it makes the tank more maneuverable, right? It makes the tank more maneuverable, and the tank is able to move much more easily in the difficult terrain of Ladakh. At the time of Pangong Tso issue, India faced the reality that China was very easily and rapidly able to mobilize its armored core to the border. But however, India faced difficulty in lifting its tanks from the plains and positioning them at the LAC. So India realized that we need a lighter version which becomes more flexible, and it becomes easier to first transport and then move over there in the difficult terrain of Ladakh, which is full of rivulets, right? So on and forth. So its operational ability is with respect to it can work even in the high altitudes, and because of its smaller size and equivalent capabilities, it can also work in the island based operations. And another other capabilities include that it has modular armor and advanced weaponry. See, only weight of the tank has been reduced without compromising with the quality and the performance of the particular tank that has been committed by the DRDO. It is amphibious in nature. Almost all of these armored vehicles are generally amphibious in nature. However, the advancement lies that it has been AI integrated. It can be used along with functioning of drones, and it has a unmanned aerial vehicle support. And most important feature is with respect to the rapidness in the deployment of this tank. As of now, we have deployed T-72, that is Arjun tank, on the border. Although it is also equally competent and efficient, but first of all, the problem lies in its deployment. It took a lot of time for us to respond in the context of the Pangong Tso crisis. Even Pakistan has a much better and a smaller functioning tank when compared to the Indian side, and at the same time China was able to respond to the crisis in a much more efficient way, right? So first one being rapid deployment, and second one being the maneuverability of this particular tank. So in this context, this particular tank is important. Now in the past, UPSC has recently asked, uh, consider the following aircrafts: Rafale, MiG-29 and Tejas Mk1. Which one of the following was a fifth generation aircraft? And if you remember, if you have been the follower of DNS, we had already covered the Rafale aircraft in our one of the prelims session, right? So in the similar spirit, let us try to solve this particular question. Consider the following statements about India's Zoravar tank. The Zoravar tank is designed for high mobility and agility in mountainous terrains. Yes, this statement is correct. It is equipped with advanced electronics and artificial intelligence. Yes, this statement is also correct. Tank is developed by India and Russia, right? So, is it developed by India and Russia? No, it has been indigenously developed. So, statement 3 being wrong, the right answer is 1 and 2 only. Moving on to the second topic of the prelims for the day. The topic is inspired by the resurgence of hepatitis A cases in Kerala in the adolescent population. So what is the context? There have been, although overall if we see that there has been a decline in the number of cases of hepatitis A in Kerala. However, we have seen an increase in number of cases in adults, right? So in this context, let us understand what is hepatitis B, how it is caused, and what are the issues around it. Now, what is basically meaning of hepatitis as a disease? It basically means because of certain kind of infection, there is an inflammation of liver, and it is a highly contagious liver infection which is caused by a virus. That means it is a virus based disease. Unlike the next one, we will see that this particular disease is a virus based disease. Although this particular disease does not cause any chronic liver disease, however, there can be an acute liver failure in rare cases. Chronic disease means it does not cause a long-term problem in liver. However, in certain rare cases, if the infection persists, it can cause sudden failure of liver, right? So we need to be wary of this particular disease. Now, what are the key features and issues associated with hepatitis disease? How it is caused? Basically, this particular virus can be transmitted through fecal oral route, coming into close contact with the person who is suffering from this particular infection, and the major cause of hepatitis A spread is poor sanitation and hygiene measures. What is the diagnosis with respect to hepatitis A? The diagnosis is provided with the help of blood test which detect HAV, that is hepatitis A virus, and virus specific antibodies. Now, because this disease is caused by lack of sanitation, how to prevent? The obvious question arises, how do we prevent this particular disease? So this particular disease can be prevented with the help of a simple vaccination. And in fact, the news was in context of this thing only, that Kerala has been able to largely prevent the outbreaks of hepatitis A with the help of effective and cheap vaccination programs, right? So the vaccine for this particular disease is already available. Then another step that is needed is with respect to sanitation and hygiene. There is a need for food safety and there is a need for safe drinking water, right? Because if the water source is polluted, it will go inside the body and the virus will spread and inflammate the liver, right? Now, what have been the government initiatives till now in this context? Government has come up with National Viral Hepatitis Prevention Program. Then another component of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan in general is associated with overall cleanliness, and cleanliness leads to prevention of this particular disease. And next is with respect to government is also proactively working on public awareness programs to improve the condition of hepatitis A in the country. Moving on, let us solve the practice question. In past, there has been a direct question on hepatitis B. Let us solve the question that is in front of us. Consider the following modes of transmission. First, fecal oral route. Second is close contact, and third being poor sanitation and hygiene. Which of the above modes of transmission can lead to hepatitis A infection? So what do you think? First one being fecal oral route is mentioned. Close contact with the person who is suffering. Again, because obviously see, it is a viral disease, because this is caused by a virus based infection, so that means it becomes a infectious disease. That means if a person is in close contact with the person who is suffering, there are high chances that the person will also suffer. And then the third thing is that poor sanitation and hygiene also causes hepatitis A disease. So which of the modes of transmission of hepatitis A are correct? That means all three are correct. Another interesting news that has come again from Kerala is in the context of brain eating amoeba, right? In short, which is called as PAM, primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, has been found in Kerala. Now remember, the previous disease was caused by a viral infection, that is because of the presence of virus. However, this particular disease is not caused by virus but by the amoeba. Now let us see key features associated with this disease. And this disease is although very rare, but it is very deadly in nature, right? We'll see in the coming course. How it is caused? It is caused by a free living amoeba, that is a single celled organism, right? So obviously the cycle is given over here, right? This is a single celled amoeba that is called as PAM. When individuals, or for example say small children, go out and play in certain water bodies, fresh water bodies like ponds, for example where the water is localized, for example rivulets, right? So if the organism is present over there in those water bodies and the water is ingested through the nose, this particular amoeba goes into the nasal route and reaches the brain. Once this particular amoeba reaches to the brain, it further develops itself and expands and causes inflammation in the brain tissue, and subsequently the patient suffers, and there are high chances that the patient would die. So this particular amoeba does not live in saline water. It lives in warm and fresh water, and it infects the person through nose. For example, if the particular person drinks that water, in that case this amoeba will not be able to affect that particular individual. But if that particular water that is infested with amoeba, this particular water goes through the nasal route, that is through our nose, then only this amoeba can reach the brain. Another thing associated with this particular infection, the disease, is it is non-communicable in nature. Like the past one, this was communicable in nature. Hepatitis is communicable in nature. This one is non-communicable in nature. Now, what are the basic symptoms? The basic symptoms involve fever, nausea, and vomiting by the person who is suffering. And there is a high fatality rate when it comes to this disease. This high fatality occurs between day 1 and day 18, and as of now there is no effective treatment available for this particular amoeba based infection, right? So based on the information that we have just received, in past there have been direct questions on virus and virology. Let us try to solve this particular question based on the information that we have just received. Consider the following statements. Brain eating amoeba is a single celled organism found in saline water. Did we just read that it is found in saline water, or is it found in fresh water? So this statement is incorrect because it is found in uh, fresh water. Next, it causes primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, which is communicable disease. Is it a communicable disease? No, it is not a communicable disease. It infects only the host in which the amoeba is growing, right? So statement 2 again is incorrect. People get infected from drinking water contaminated with this particular amoeba. Obviously, we also discussed this point that if we take the water infected by this amoeba and we drink it, so in that case this amoeba will not be able to infect us. But if this particular water, infected water, goes through our nasal cavity, it will definitely reach the brain and cause this particular infection and subsequent death on likely 18th day. So how many of the statements are incorrect? Again, this is incorrect because we cannot get infected by drinking that particular water. So the right answer is D, that is none. Moving on to the last topic for the day. The last topic is inspired by the magazine, the last 2 pages of the Hindu, that is Chandravali cave complex that has been discovered in that has basically, it has not been discovered, but this particular photograph was given on today's The Hindu newspaper. What is the context? The context is photographs from Chandravali cave complex. Right. Now let us see basic facts associated with Chandravali cave complex. It is, where is it located? Obviously, UPSC in past, if it has asked the questions based on ancient artifacts, ancient locations, they have focused on certain basic parameters for which they have asked. So we have listed all those parameters so that if in case this particular question is asked, you are able to effectively answer that question. So the first one being, it is located in Chandravali cave complex, that is Chandradurga district of Karnataka. So Karnataka becomes important for us. Next is that various artifacts which have been found over here have been associated with the various coins, painted bowls, and it would be amazing for you to know that these artifacts have been spread over centuries, right? For example, artifacts from Hoysala period have also been found, Satvana period have also been found, and artifacts from Vijayanagar period have also been found. In the subsequent slide, we will be having a chronology of various empires which have ruled over the lands that are called as Karnataka today. Similarly, nearby there are another set of caves which are called as Ankali Matha caves, right? And in past ancient times, they are believed to have been human dwelling linked over there at those caves. And along with this, these caves have found various coins these coins are reflective of relations between Indians and Romans, Chinese and Satvahana era, right? So obviously these are the indicator that those particular empires, they had relations, trade relations with Romans and Chinese. Similarly, nearby the caves, the ruins of various dams have been also formed, have been also seen. Now, what does it signify? If a particular ruler has been making dams, it signifies perhaps two things. First one being that this particular area received a lot of rainfall, and because of which there was a large scale devastation that was occurring to agriculture. So dam means better water management, that is controlling the uncontrolled water and diverting it for irrigational purposes, right? So the empires had knowledge of irrigation as well as controlling the rivers with the help of various dams. In the same complex or nearby, Pardeshappa caves have been also formed. It is a set of 7 caves formed centuries ago inside a hill. And lastly, large boulders. For example, you can also see in the same complex a set of large boulders have also been found, and tiger engraved rocks have also been formed. And one unique feature that was noticeable over here was a shivling that was seen in one of those particular caves. That means the religion of Shaivism was dominant over there when these caves were excavated, right? So let us also take the opportunity to have a brief, have a check over the brief history of empires in Karnataka, right? So after the fall of Ashoka and the Mauryan Empire, till the time of Ashoka and the Mauryan Empire, the area of Karnataka, the present Karnataka, were ruled by the um, Ashok and its descendants. And after the fall, this area fell into the hands of Satvahana. And after the rule of Satvahana, the first indigenous dynasty that ruled over the areas of present day Karnataka is known as Kadamba dynasty, right? Moreover, when we come to from ancient to medieval period, the first dynasty that was able to rule Karnataka was Chalukyas, that ruled from 6th to 12th Christian era. Then came the rule of Rashtrakuta, that is 8th to 10th century Christian era. Then came Western Chalukyas, the Hoysalas, and Vijayanagar. You can see the chronology starting from BC 239 BC and ending in the rule of Vijayanagar, that is 14th to 17th century AD. And in the early modern period, the two dynasties that ruled the areas of Karnataka are Bijapur, that ruled in 16th to 17th century, and Kingdom of Mysore, that ruled from 16th to 20th century. Subsequently, this area again came under the company rule, and after independence, the state of Karnataka was established. Right. So this is a brief chronology, and why we have taken up a time to establish this chronology is in these particular caves, Artifacts from both all Hoysala, Satavahana and Vijayanagar kingdoms have been found. So you see, where is Hoysala? Here in the medieval. Kadamba, where is Kadamba dynasty? In the ancient times. And artifacts from Vijayanagar also, early modern times, have also been found. So artifacts from all the ancient, medieval and early modern eras have been found at this particular site. So that is why this site becomes important. Now in the past there have been questions on rock cut architecture. For example, Badami caves. Directly there was a question. You see Badami caves as in the Chalukyas, right? Chalukyas over here. So again, let us solve this particular MCQ over here with reference to Chandravali cave complex. Consider the following statements. The complex is dedicated to Lord Vishnu. Is it correct? Are there any evidences of the dedication of this cave complex to Lord Vishnu? Obviously, no. We did not read anything like this, that this particular cave complex was a religious complex or it was particularly dedicated to Lord Vishnu. However, there have been evidences of a shivling over here, which means that perhaps Shaivism was followed over there, right? So there is no evidence as of now of uh, dedicating this complex to Lord Vishnu, right? Statement 1 being incorrect. Now moving on, it contains inscription from Mayur Sharma, the founder of Kadamba dynasty. Yes, we read it that artifacts from Kadamba dynasty have been found over here, right? So this particular statement becomes correct. And lastly, it had trade connections with Roman Empire. Yes, along with those artifacts, we have also found various coins. For example, coins from Chinese rulers, coins from Romans. So again, statement 3 becomes correct. How many of the statements given above are correct? The right answer would be only 2, right? So with this we conclude our session for today. If you like this video, kindly put a thumbs up over there, and if you have any particular doubts, please answer in the comment section, right? So with this we conclude the session for today. Have a good evening.